The Utterly Perfect Murder by Ray Bradbury. It was such an utterly perfect, such an incredibly delightful ideal for murder that I was half out of my mind all across America. The idea had come to me for some reason on my 48th birthday. Why it hadn't come to me when I was 30 or 40, I cannot say. Perhaps those were good years, and I sailed through them unaware of time and clocks and the gathering of frost at my temples or the look of the line about my eyes. Anyway, on my 48th birthday, lying in bed that night beside my wife, with my children sleeping through all the other quiet, moonlit rooms of my house, I thought, I will arise and go now and kill Ralph Underhill. Ralph Underhill, I cried. Who in God's name is he? 36 years later, kill him for what? Why, I thought, for what he did to me when I was 12. My wife woke an hour later, hearing a noise. Doug, she called, what are you doing? Packing, I said, for a journey. Oh, she murmured and rolled over and went to sleep. Board, all aboard. The porter's cries went down the train platform. The train shuddered and banged. See you, I cried, leaping up the steps. Someday, called my wife, I wish you'd fly. Fly, I thought, and spoil, thinking about murder all across the plains. Spoil oiling the pistol and loading it and thinking of Ralph Underhill's face when I show up 36 years late to settle old scores. Fly? Why, I would rather pack cross-country on foot, pausing by night to build fires and fry my bile and sour spit and eat again my old mummified but still living antagonisms and touch those bruises which have never healed. Fly? The train moved. My wife was gone. I rode off into the past. Crossing Kansas the second night, we hit a beaut of a thunderstorm. I stayed up until 4 a.m. listening to the raves of the winds and the thunders. At the height of the storm, I saw my face, a darkroom negative print on the cold window glass, and thought, where is that fool going? To kill Ralph Underhill. Why? Because. Remember how he hit my arm? Bruises. I was covered with bruises, both arms. Dark blue, mottled black, strange yellow bruises. Hit and run. That was Ralph. Hit and run. And yet, you loved him. Yes, as boys love boys when boys are 8, 10, 12, and the world is innocent, and boys are evil, beyond evil, because they know not what they do, but do it anyway. So on some secret level, I had to be hurt. We dear fine friends needed each other, I to be hit, he to strike. My scars were the emblem and symbol of our love. What else makes you want to murder Ralph so late in time? The train whistle shrieked. Night country rolled by, and I recalled one spring when I came to school in a new tweed knicker suit and Ralph knocking me down, rolling me in snow and fresh brown mud. And Ralph laughing, and me going home shamefaced, covered with slime, afraid of a beating, to put on fresh dry clothes. Yes, and what else? Remember those toy clay statues you longed to collect from the Tarzan radio show? Statues of Tarzan and Kala the ape and Numa the lion for just 25 cents? Yes, beautiful. Even now in memory, oh, the sound of the ape man swinging through green jungles far away undulating. But who had 25 cents in the middle of the Great Depression? No one, except Ralph Underhill. And one day Ralph asked you if you wanted one of the statues. Want it, you cried? Yes. That was the same week your brother, in a strange seizure of love mixed with contempt, gave you his old but expensive baseball catcher's mitt. Well, said Ralph, I'll give you my extra Tarzan statue if you give me that catcher's mitt. Fool, I thought, the statue's worth 25 cents. The glove costs $2. No fair. Don't. But I raced back to Ralph's house with the glove and gave it to him, and he, smiling a worse contempt than my brother's, handed me the Tarzan statue, and bursting with joy, I ran home. My brother didn't find out about his catcher's mitt and the statue for 2 weeks, and when he did, he ditched me when we hiked out in farm country and left me because I was such a sap. Tarzan statues, baseball mitts, he cried. That's the last thing I ever give you. And somewhere on a country road I just lay down and wept and wanted to die, but didn't know how to give up the final vomit that was my miserable ghost. The thunder murmured. The rain fell on the cold Pullman car windows. What else? Is that the list? No. One final thing, more terrible than all the rest. In all the years you went to Ralph's house to toss up small bits of gravel on his 4th of July, 6 in the morning, fresh dewy window, or call him forth for the arrival of dawn circuses in the cold, fresh blue railroad stations in late June or late August. In all those years, never once did Ralph run to your house. Never once in all the years did he or anyone else prove their friendship by coming by. The door never knocked. The window of your bedroom never faintly clattered and belled with highly tossed confetti of small dust and rocks. And you always knew that the day you stopped going to Ralph's house, calling up in the morn, that would be the day your friendship ended. You tested it once. You stayed away for a whole week. Ralph never called. It was as if you had died and no one came to your funeral. When you saw Ralph at school, there was no surprise, no query, not even the faintest lint of curiosity to be picked off your coat. Where were you, Doug? I need someone to beat. Where have you been, Doug? I've got no one to pinch. Add all the sins up, but especially think on the last. He never came to my house. He never sang up to my early morning bed or tossed the wedding rice of gravel on the clear panes to call me down to joy in summer days. And for this last thing, Ralph Underhill, I thought, sitting in the train at 4 in the morning as the storm faded and I found tears in my eyes, for this last and final thing, for that I shall kill you tomorrow night. Murder, I thought, after 36 years, why, God, you're madder than Ahab. The train wailed. We ran cross-country like a mechanical Greek fate carried by a black metal Roman fury. They say you can't go home again. That is a lie. If you are lucky and time it right, you arrive at sunset when the old town is filled with yellow light. I got off the train and walked up through Greentown and looked at the courthouse burning with the sunset light. Every tree was hung with gold doubloons of color. Every roof and coping and bit of gingerbread was purest brass and ancient gold. I sat in the courthouse square with dogs and old men until the sun had set and Greentown was dark. I wanted to savor Ralph Underhill's death. No one in history had ever done a crime like this. I would stay, kill, depart, a stranger among strangers. How would anyone dare to say, finding Ralph Underhill's body on his doorstep, that a boy aged 12, arriving on a kind of time machine train, traveled out of hideous self-contempt, had gunned down the past? It was beyond all reason, and I was safe in my pure insanity. Finally, at 8:30 on this cool October night, I walked across town, past the ravine. I never doubted Ralph would still be there. People do, after all, move away. I turned down Park Street and walked 200 yards to a single street lamp and looked across. Ralph Underhill's white 2-story Victorian house waited for me, and I could feel him in it. He was there, 48 years old, even as I felt myself here, 48, and full of an old and tired and self-devouring spirit. I stepped out of the light, opened my suitcase, put the pistol in my right-hand coat pocket, shut the case, and hid it in the bushes where later I would grab it and walk down into the ravine and across the town into the train. I walked across the street and stood before his house, and it was the same house I'd stood before 36 years ago. There were windows upon which I had hurled those spring bouquets of rock and love and total giving. There were the sidewalks spotted with firecracker burn marks from ancient July 4ths when Ralph and I had just blown up the whole damned world's shrieking celebrations. I walked up on the porch and saw on the mailbox in small letters Underhill. What if his wife answers? No, I thought, he himself, with absolute Greek tragic perfection, will open the door, take the wound, and almost gladly die for old crimes and minor sins somehow grown to crimes. I rang the bell. Will he know me, I wondered, after all this time? In the instant before the first shot, tell him your name. He must know who it is. Silence. I rang the bell again. Then the doorknob rattled. I touched the pistol in my pocket, my heart hammering, but did not take it out. The door opened. Ralph Underhill stood there. He blinked, gazing out at me. Ralph, I said. Yes, he said. We stood there riven for what could not have been more than 5 seconds, but many things happened in those swift seconds. I saw Ralph Underhill. I saw him clearly. and I had not seen him since I was 12. Then he had towered over me to pummel and beat and scream. Now he was a little old man. I am 5'11", but Ralph Underhill had not grown much from his 12th year on. The man who stood before me was no more than 5 feet 2 inches tall. I towered over him. I gasped. I stared. I saw more. I was 48 years old. But Ralph Underhill, 48, had lost most of his hair, and what remained was a threadbare gray, black and white. He looked 60 or 65. I was in good health. Ralph Underhill was waxen pale. There was a knowledge of sickness in his face. He had traveled in some sunless land. He had a ravaged and sunken look. His breath smelled of funeral flowers. All of this perceived was like the storm of the night before, gathering all its lightnings and thunders into one bright concussion. We stood in the explosion. So this is what I came for, I thought. This, then, is the truth. This dreadful instant in time. Not to pull out the weapon, not to kill, no, but simply to see Ralph Underhill as he is in this hour. That's all. Just to be here, stand here, and look at him as he has become. Ralph Underhill lifted one hand in a kind of gesturing wonder. His lips trembled. His eyes flew up and down my body. His mind measured this giant who shadowed his door. At last his voice, so small, so frail, blurted out, "Doug." I recoiled. "Doug?" he gasped. "Is that you?" I hadn't expected that. People don't remember. They can't. Across the years. Why would he know? Bother. Summon up. Recognize. Call. I had a wild thought that what had happened to Ralph Underhill was that after I left town, half of his life had collapsed. I had been the center of his world, someone to attack, beat, pommel, and bruise. His whole life had cracked by my simple act of walking away 36 years ago. Nonsense. Yet some small crazed mouse of wisdom scuttled about my brain and screeched what it knew. You needed Ralph, but more he needed you. And you did the only unforgivable, wounding thing. You vanished. "Doug," he said again, for I was silent on the porch with my hands at my sides. "Is that you?" This was the moment I'd come for. At some secret blood level, I had always known I would not use the weapon. I had brought it with me, yes, but the time had gotten here before me in age and smaller, more terrible deaths. Bang! 6 shots through the heart. But I didn't use the pistol. I only whispered the sounds of shots with my mouth. With each whisper, Ralph Underhill's face aged another 10 years. By the time I reached the last shot, he was 110 years old. Bang, I whispered. Bang, 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 bang. His body shook with the impact. "You're dead. Oh, God, Ralph, you're dead." I turned and walked down the steps and reached the street before he called. "Doug, is that you?" I did not answer, walking. "Answer me," he cried weakly. Doug Spaulding, is that you? Who is that? Who are you?" I got my suitcase and walked out into the cricket night in the darkness of the ravine and across the bridge and up the stairs, going away. "Who is that?" I heard his voice wail a last time. A long way off, I looked back. All the house lights were on in Ralph Underhill's house. It was as if he had gone around and put them all on after I left. On the other side of the ravine, I stopped on the lawn in front of the house where I had been born. Then I picked up a few bits of gravel and did the thing that had never been done ever in my life. I tossed the few bits of gravel up to tap that window where I had lain every morning of my first 12 years. I called my own name. I called me down in friendship to play in some long summer that no longer was. I stood waiting just long enough for my other young self to come down and join me. Then swiftly, fleeing ahead of the dawn, we ran out of Greentown and back, thank you, back, towards now and today for the rest of my life.